bring the museum back to life.
You know, people sit out on the front porch hoping people will come by.
Go forth and do good. It's insane. I have the most understanding wife in the world.
I treat everybody the same thing.
Oh, that's the other thing I love about Marietta. It's like a melting pot.
You are listening to Marietta Stories. Each week, veteran podcaster Bill Nowicki brings you the heartwarming, interesting, and fun stories from the people that make the community of Marietta, Georgia, a place to call home. Here's your host, Bill Nowicki.
Hey everybody, welcome to a special bonus episode of Marietta Stories podcast. I have Bobby Sparks on the show. He's coming to Marietta's Jazz and Jokes on Friday, the 28th of February, which is coming up really quick. He's a 9-time Grammy Award-winning musician. He's a keyboardist. He's been singing and playing with the likes of people like Prince, Herbie Hancock, George Duke, Marcus Miller, Ray Charles, George Benson, you name it. He's also been doing gospel music for years and years, a child prodigy, really fascinating story. But you'll have to check him out at Marietta's Jazz and Jokes. And if you remember, I had season 1 Fontaine Lewis on the show, and he's a super sweet guy, gives musical instruments to schools that can't afford them. Just a super, super sweet guy. And he somehow finds a way to bring this top tier talent to Marietta. I hope you'll check it out. Bobby talks about how much fun it's going to be. Check it out. I'll have the link in the show notes to Jazz and Jokes, Friday night the 28th. Bobby Sparks. Let's hear what he has to say. All right, I have Bobby Sparks II here. He's a musician. He's coming to Marietta, Georgia, Marietta Jazz and Jokes on Friday night, the 28th, I believe, of February. And he's a very interesting guy, and he's won 9 Grammy Awards, and he has his foot in both jazz and gospel. And that started at an early age, didn't it, Bobby?
Yes, sir, it did. Started in the church at 6th Avenue Baptist Church in Corsicana, Texas.
Yeah, I see that you started playing the organ at age 3. Can that be true?
Yes, roughly by 4. I say by 4. I started kind of like tinkling with it around 3 and, just reaching up. And, I think it started making sense around 4 or 5.
Uh-huh. So tell me about your parents.
Yeah, my parents, they're both educators. My mom taught 45 years. My dad taught about 42 years and then became a truant officer. My mother retired as a principal as well. They were educators, and on the side, they were always musicians. And my dad played trumpet and the blues. He played the blues. He played. He had his own band, jazz band, and he had a blues band, and he kind of took it seriously. And then when I was born, I think he wanted to, kind of think about, stability. But he always, taught, but he traveled more. And my dad was an avid lover of Dizzy Gillespie, Count Basie, Duke Ellington. That's kind of what I learned. And my mother, also, who's a jazz lover, she also sings jazz, but she played organ and piano at the church, directed the choir. She kind of showed me my first gospel song, which is Coming Home, which is an old hymn. And then she showed me how to use those same chords and use the same chords. And there's another hymn called What a Fellowship, and play that.
Ah.
So it's that was the beginning, around 1978, 77, 78, 79, that period.
Wow. So you didn't feel any difference going from gospel and that type of music to jazz and blues?
Well, it was just kind of what was going on in my house. My dad always listened to You always had Count Basie. You always had Dizzy Gillespie. You always had Louis Armstrong, and he had, he had that going on the stereo player. And then my mother would always be practicing on the piano for music that she was preparing for church on Sunday. And of course, I would always be playing because I played with her at church. So that was just kind of the pull, the dynamic of the household. And then when I got older, around the fourth, fifth grade, I discovered Prince, and that changed my world. So now, I became a funkster within this gospel world. My daddy kind of forced the jazz on me. I dug it. I dug it, but I really kind of shied away from it because I didn't really understand it during the time. But later on, once I really embraced it, and I was advanced more than the other kids that were my age because I already knew what it was because I've been hearing it all my life.
Tell me about your life. You started getting exposed. You said Prince. What was it about Prince that really lit a fire in you?
It's around 83, and I think the whole world was into Michael Jackson. And I always loved Michael Jackson, had nothing against him. But I was always kind of the guy, I'm still that type of guy, that, kind of what everybody's into, I just choose to shy away from that. Just to, I don't know why I do that. But if everybody's playing piano, well, okay, well, I'll just go play the organ. If everybody's playing the organ, I'll go play the piano, So there was a song that came on the radio called Irresistible, and it was so funky.
Yeah.
And it was a guy named Prince. And I thought it was in the fifth grade. And it just kind of messed me up because it was just so funky at the time. And it's just like, but nobody was talking about this guy. I mean, people knew who he was, but, but just the music and then it kind of turned from Prince to Rick James, and then I just kind of got into Parliament Funkadelic.
Right.
Around, and that just kind of became because I love music. And then somehow, in the middle school, my dad got in the country. He got into Merle Haggard. So Merle Haggard, Daddy loved Merle Haggard. But I listened to these Merle Haggard songs, but it was all about these stories. So I understand, that's kind of where I was inspired to maybe get into songwriting because of hearing these stories. When you listen to these songs, you could actually just see what was going on. It was like a movie in audio. So,
yeah. So you went to high school and studied music, and then
Well, I went to high school, but pretty much I was an athlete. So I was playing football and basketball. And really I really wanted to be in the NBA. That was my ultimate dream. And of course it didn't happen. But
music was always a part of it. Did it go away for a while and come back, or?
No, because I was always playing, but it was my dream to be in the NFL, and I was never going to stop playing, but I always wanted it to just be a great hobby, I played every Sunday at church.
Really? Did you feel like your mom forced you to do that, or is it something you really enjoyed, or?
No, it's something that I wanted. That was a part of me, I wanted. I was a gospel musician, and I loved it. I loved the music. I studied it. A lot of musicians inspired me. And, it's just kind of what it was back during that period. Because I was, as a young black kid and living in a small town of Corsicana, Texas, there was no club. So I just couldn't go to a club and just play in a club. You know, so it's like in the black church, that's where you can go and play. And you can play. And back, it's not like church today, because church now is a big production. You know, you have to have professional musicians. Well, when I was coming up, it was more so, you know, they would let kids play on the instrument as long as they could play skillfully.
Right,
you know?
right.
And that's where we learned.
Mm-hmm. Did you get exposed to any nightclubs or anything early on, or was that until you were an adult?
Well, my dad would always, whenever Ray Charles came to town, there was a club in Dallas called Granny's Playhouse. They would always take me to, my parents always wanted to expose me to great musicians. So anytime that Count Basie was in Dallas, they took me. And if it was at a club, the club would allow me to come in as long as I was with my parents, as long as, you know, I couldn't sit near the bar, you know, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
I think they took me to see B.B. King, you know.
Yeah, and it sounds like you got to actually work with some of these greats too. That must have been a thrill.
Absolutely, I did. And later on, 2010, I ended up working with Prince, and you know, just noted, you know, he was a fan of me. So he's just telling me how much he loved my playing. He had been watching me for 4 or 5 years, and on YouTube and type of stuff like that. And of course, I was, you know, I'm like, man, I used to try to look like you. So
that must have blew you away when you heard that.
Oh, yeah, it blew me away. I did a record. I used to love listening to George Benson, and I ended up playing on the record for him. And all the people that I've, you know, love Fred Hammond. He's a gospel artist. You know, I was a fan of his because during my gospel days, I looked up to a group called Commission, which featured Michael Brooks, who's keyboard wizard, and he's probably one of my first idols of gospel music. He always played 12 synthesizers around him, and that's kind of why I started having 12 synthesizers around me, because of him.
Do you feel like you're always trying to push yourself to learn more or try different things? Is that still part of your thing?
Oh, absolutely. You know, absolutely. That's for me. I get bored just doing one thing. I don't want to I love jazz, but I just don't want to play it all the time. I love hip hop, but I don't want to listen to it all the time. I love gospel. That's where I came from, but I don't want to play it all the time. So, perfect world for me is to be into everything and study all styles of music. I'm into world music. I'm into, you know, whatever, orchestral music. And I always try to mix things in, just try to push. I try to do stuff that hasn't been done before or hasn't been done like that. I'll try to do it my way. I always try to do opposite of what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, it sounds like that's part of your whole wiring. Tell me about Schizophrenia. I listened to some of that album, and it seems like you incorporated some story elements like Merle Haggard and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, Schizophrenia is an album that I started. The idea started around 1994 and 95. I was on tour with a gospel artist named Kirk Franklin, and we were fixing to start a tour. And the day before, I go to Sound Warehouse to buy some CDs. I bought 3 CDs that day. First CD was D'Angelo's Brown Sugar. The next record was Marcus Miller's Tales record. The third record was a guy named Foley. Foley was in Miles Davis's last band. He played lead bass. So he's a weird looking guy. He always Nobody knew who he was, but it was like he commanded the stage. He played the Grammys in 1990, and I saw it. And I was like, man, who is the guitar player? I'm like, wait a minute. He's playing guitar on bass.
Wow.
And that was, for me, that kind of messed me up because that brought me into him. It's like, man, how do you play guitar on bass? So he tuned his bass up a 7. So going back to the story, when I saw them, I'm like, this has to be that guy. This looked like. So I bought the record. The record was so creative to the point where, he had sound bites, he had everything that I had never heard before. But I'm like, I love this. I want to do something like this. So between those 3 records, that inspired me to start writing. And then I started recording my record in 1999. Now during this time, of course, me, Roy Hargrove, Keith Anderson, we all kind of grew up together. I met Roy through Keith Anderson because they really grew up together. But me, Roy, we all used to hang out every time Roy would come back to Dallas, special occasions. So Roy's at my house, and I'm letting him hear parts of the Schizophrenia record, like the song "Take It."
Mm-hmm.
And he just shook his head like, man, this is the baddest shit I've ever heard. He's like, man, I wanna do something like this. I'm like, well, let's do it. So that was the birth of the RH Factor records. Roy's manager said, hey, well, can we do demos here at your house? We did the demos at my house, mixed it, sent it to the record company, Verve. They loved it. They went crazy over it. They gave us a budget and told us to come to New York. They gave us Electric Lady Studios. We took 3 weeks and recorded. So going back, that's how the RH Factor record was the beginning of the RH Factor record. It took me, people ask me, why did it take 20 years to cut a record? And basically because I was always the ultimate side man.
Mm.
So basically I was always out on the road with either it was Kirk Franklin, Marcus Miller, Les McCann, or whoever I was playing with. The RH Factor, so it just took, D'Angelo, Lauryn Hill, all these artists. So there's no time for you to really work on your music. And when you come back in town, I'm playing every night in the club.
Right.
So there's no time for you to work on your music because you're always learning somebody else's music, or
you're almost like in a factory loop where you got to keep cranking it out and you're working with this new thing, keeping that going. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like you worked it in over 20 years. You got to put it together. That's pretty cool.
But I did, when I had time, I was always writing, but, just to focus. And then whenever I was on the road, I always had my computer, my inbox. And if I saw someone, if I was out with, I'd pull Hiram Bullock in my room, say, hey man, just play a solo over this. Because nobody ever gave me any money to do that record. I always thought that I was going to get a record company to throw some cash at me, but it never happened. Mm-hmm. So just kind of had to do that record the best way I could.
Right, but you probably had a lot of you could do it yourself, whatever you decided.
I always wanted to do records the classic way, get everybody in the studio, fly everybody to Electric Lady, and that whole type of thing, bring all the artists in and, that kind of thing. But, of course, can't cut records like that because there are no budgets for it. So you have to get in your bedroom and pull out a sketch and then overdub the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I guess you missed that whole teamwork part of it if you're trying to piece it together.
But evidently it was, people love it. Stevie Wonder called me.
Really?
And, like I said, I never met Stevie Wonder in my life. And he got my number and he called me and was like, asked me like, man, how'd you do it? I was like, I just overdubbed it. I mean, I don't have no, but, do it the best way I could.
Mm.
And he was like, I haven't heard a record this good in 35 years.
That's crazy.
And he said, I bought 20 copies and I gave them all away. And I laughed through the whole record.
Wow.
So, which was an honor for me because he's it's like Stevie, Prince, Michael Jackson.
So how does somebody like you end up in coming to Marietta, Georgia? How did you know Fontaine? How'd that whole thing happen? He's got some magical powers. I don't know.
Well, I met Fontaine at the Ground Up Music Festival maybe 4 years ago. And I was sitting with a friend of mine named Sean Martin. And Sean had done some tours with him. And he was like, man, Bobby, man, you need to be the man. The world needs to hear what you have to say. Well, I'm not the best artist. You know, I'm kind of a shy person. For me, I'm not very outgoing. So I never just really wanted to be an artist. I just wanted to do a record just to show what I'm able to present, you know, as music. But I'd rather be just a side guy, behind the scenes guy. So Fontaine was like, man, he just stayed on me. Man, when we gonna do something? I'm like, okay, man, let's just get some dates. Let's just do it. And I'll put together some fellas and we'll do it. So Fontaine, he put together, 4 or 5 dates, and here we are.
That's great. Yeah, he's got magical powers. He gets some really good acts, and you're gonna love the venue. And I'm gonna be there Friday night, so I'm excited to see you, and I'm super excited to put your story out on the podcast. Get some more folks to head out and watch it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm probably reach out to some friends of mine that might come through if they're available. I haven't called them yet, but hopefully Brother Jubu Smith will be able to come and sit in, play guitar with me, and we'll reach out to Kevin Williams, who's a good saxophone friend of mine. He plays with Derek Trucks.
Yeah, Atlanta has got some good musicians.
Mm-hmm. Little John Roberts, who is one of my favorite drummers of all time. He's a brother. We're like brothers, and hopefully he'll come up and set a second drum set up and sit in with us. That whole type of thing. I just try to make it a party. I got some vocalists. My sister Danessa Perry and her 2 sons, Dez and Donaire. They're an incredible family. They bring a lot to the table from doing classical music to, we're just going to try to do a little bit of everything.
Well, you're going to play a little gospel, jazz, blues?
Yeah.
Oh,
everything.
wow.
We're going to do rock, so you come to just imagine if James Brown and Prince and Jimi Hendrix and all showed up to do a concert, all as one band.
Wow.
Even Mozart might show up, or Beethoven.
Oh boy, I can't wait. I'm super excited. I'm excited you're coming to Marietta and sharing your talents with us, and hopefully bringing some folks from around town and cutting it up and having a good time on a Friday night.
Yeah, it's my first. I ain't been to Marietta in a long time.
Yeah, I was excited to hear what you think of it. We're getting there. I think you'll like it.
I love Atlanta. Atlanta's like, breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time today, and we hope everybody will come out for next Friday night and hear you and whatever the band is. I'm sure it's going to be great, and I can't wait to hear all those. You're going to play some standards and some new stuff, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. We're going to definitely play some standards. We're going to play a little bit of everything. It'll be just a music party.
Sounds great. Well, thanks for spending the time.
Okay. Well, thank you, brother.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Thanks to Bobby Sparks. You can see him at Marietta Jazz and Jokes. I have the link in the show notes, or he's going to Charlotte, some other places. Check it out.